everyone, and welcome back to the Newsfloor. My name is Valerie Lee, and I'm your host. We are going to be meeting up here every single week on Wednesdays at noon Pacific time. I'm going to be going over and downloading with you guys all of the top news and conversations of things happening in and around the world of dance, electronic, and nightlife, things that you have to know as a fan, as a person in the industry, whoever you are. And of course, we're going to be rounding up listening to top tracks and releases of the week from Beatport, Pete Tong's Essential New Tune, and of course, Newsfloor picks and exclusives from our end. And then last but certainly not least, we're going to be having plenty of exclusive chats with your favorite artists and people from in and around the world of rave. Thank you for joining us here on Lost Resort TV, right on Twitch. If you can, give us a follow, subscribe if you can. It would be awesome to have you. Something that I don't think I've said yet that I actually thought about this week that I think it would be important to say is that I hope that you guys feel comfortable and are welcomed to come join me in the chat. Tell me what you're thinking about the subjects and tracks and interviews that we're bringing in. Every single week, we're trying our best to pick and choose some of the most important, relevant, and, whether it's controversial or not, stuff that we think is important for you guys to know. But it's always really great to hear from you. I think that's the beauty of being on a platform like Twitch is that it's not like a regular TV show. It is something where we want to hear from you. We want you to engage. We want to know, do you agree with it? Do you not agree? Why? Tell us everything. React in the chat. If you love it, send us emotes and things. I'm also trying to get my Lost Resort TV overlords to give me an emote, so maybe if you do it more, we'll get that done faster. But no, in all seriousness, it has been super fun to do this. We're on episode 3, so we're still at the beginning of the journey. If you're loving what we're doing, please join us when we're not live. Also on the social channels, we are at the Newsfloor on Instagram and Twitter. We're going to be sharing all of the content week to week on those channels. And this week, we have a crazy episode, if I do say so myself. I don't know what is going on. I think maybe it's the end of the summer of 2020 that never was. Looking into the end of the year and into 2021, maybe that's got people, I don't know, hyped up about something. The energy seems to have changed, but there's a lot going on. So on the news, there is so much going on about the world of nightlife related to COVID. We have both bad and good news. Bad news is that iconic venues are shutting their doors. It's horrible, it's sad, but we need to talk about it because this is really happening. The nightlife industry is becoming affected, is currently being affected by the fallout of COVID-19. Ibiza is going into lockdown on the other side of the world. And on the good side of things, there are venues that are reopening, not even in a post-pandemic world. They are deeply within the pandemic currently and are looking to reopen. So it's going to be very interesting and important, I think, to see how these venue owners are going to be tackling it and doing it safely. On the digital side of things, we have news from Twitch, news from the gaming world in the FIFA universe, and a general update about what the hell is going on over in the UK. Things are a bit crazy everywhere, I think, right now, but specifically in the UK, there's been tons of talk in the headlines about the government and the way that the nightlife industry is being affected by COVID and the way that they are and what they're asking for, essentially, from their government. So we're going to get into all of that. On the music side of things, we're going to get into top releases of the week. Newsfloor picks are stellar this week, if I do say so myself. We have picks from Machine Drum and Brandon Lucas, so stay tuned for some exclusive stuff around those. Next up is The Circuit, which is a segment where we like to bring in people from in and around the industry, whether it be promoters, festival people, events people, or people just doing cool things in the dance music industry that aren't necessarily artists. This week, we have someone wonderful joining us, Stacey Lee, who is the director of Underplayed, which is a documentary that came out recently addressing the stories of women and equality in dance music, which we all know, super important topic and something that we have talked about for many years, and I really appreciated how this documentary kind of tackled it. We'll get into that. And then last but certainly not least, we will end things with the catch up, a segment where we get to catch up with our favorite artists. And this week's is truly one of my favorite artists and people. His name is Cassian. He is awesome, one of the best talents out of Australia, and there are a lot of them out there. He released his new album earlier this year and has a new remix that just came out this week. So we're gonna get a listen and some stories about that. So stay tuned right here on the Newsfloor. All right, let us not dilly-dally for the news this week. As I mentioned in the sort of chapter of contents intro, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on this week, and I don't know what it is, but it is all super important and good for us to get into. So let's get started with some sad news. Renowned Washington, D.C. venue U Street Music Hall is closing its doors this week. Not even this week. It's already closed its doors upon the announcement. The venue closed in March, just a few days before they were actually meant to celebrate their 10-year anniversary, and of course closed due to quarantine and stay-at-home restrictions here in the U.S. And despite spending the past few months with donations, raising donations, and switching over to live streaming efforts, the venue has announced that they will officially close down effective immediately. Many artists who have played the venue before, upon hearing the news on social media, shared their condolences, including A-Track, Jacques Green, The Blessed Madonna, and many more. Ibiza, on the other side of the world, is undergoing a partial lockdown starting October 2nd. Parties of more than 5 will be banned. Bars and restaurants must close at 10 p.m., and authorities have recommended that people stay at home, although they have not yet made that a mandatory rule. The mandate came after the surge in contagion rate rose in Ibiza, which reached 620 per 100,000 inhabitants, which was 3 times the rate as compared to the rest of the Balearic Islands over the past 2 weeks. So following a quiet summer in Ibiza, things are still going to remain very quiet over there. On the digital side of things, Twitch launches Soundtrack by Twitch, which is a rights clearance music catalog for streamers. I think on the surface level, this sounds a little bit more like music-related news than it actually is. It's more, I think, targeted towards gamers, but still exciting as a development for those who are creating music that is going to be part of this music catalog. So, Soundtrack is a new tool from Twitch that will allow creators to add licensed music to their streams, targeting the main user base of gamers, as we know. It is meant to address the ongoing issues of having creator content that becomes muted or taken down due to unlicensed music. And this isn't really referring to live streams. This is more about VOD, which is video on demand content that is uploaded after a live stream. For example, if it has a song that's playing in it that isn't licensed, it is taken down. So that is always a big problem for creators. So the initial lineup of supported partners is really awesome. It includes a group of indie labels and distribution partners like SoundCloud, Monster Cat, Empire, Westwood Records, Alpha Pup Pop Gang, Dimmock, Create Music Group, and Juna Beats. A lot of cool sort of indie and electronic and I think R&B and hip hop leaning. Noticeably, no majors are involved in the first invite of Soundtrack, so we'll keep an eye out on how that develops. Some other news that happened this week, of course, rocked kind of the dubstep and bass music community. Veteran dubstep artist Cookie Monster has died at age 31. Horribly sad. The news came via his longtime label Circus Records, who shared the announcement. Of course, no cause of death has been shared. A quote from their announcement said, "Our beloved Tony Cook, aka Cookie Monster, has left us. All of our thoughts go to Tony's family, friends, and our heart especially goes out to Tony's son, Ollie, the mini monster." And last May, he had shared that he had been struggling with some mental health issues on his Facebook page and subsequently canceled his tour. No word again on the cause of death, but thoughts and condolences to his family and loved ones. In the other side of things, Diplo is a playable character in the new FIFA 21 game. He has been added as part of the Groundbreakers series in EA Sports' FIFA 21, and a number of new players have been added. Alongside Diplo will be some other sports figures, which is kind of a funny combination. Two-time heavyweight boxing champion Anthony Joshua and a handful of other footballing legends, aka soccer for us Americans, Eric Cantona, Kylian Mbappe, and Thierry Henry. So in addition, among the artists that are featured on the FIFA 21 Volta gameplay mode soundtrack include The Prodigy, Disclosure, Underworld, Little Sims, and Alice in Wonderland, Stormzy, Idris Elba, and Oliver Heldens. So a very electronic-friendly soundtrack coming to FIFA 21. So, some other news that is related and pretty much centered around COVID-19 and the way it is affecting the nightlife industry. Club space in Miami is set to reopen this weekend with new safety guidelines. So overall, really positive news as far as nightclubs actually being able to open during and in the middle of, quite frankly, a pandemic. Miami actually went into phase 3 of reopening earlier last week, which gave bars and nightclubs the green light to reopen with restrictions that include an 11 p.m. curfew, face mask, and capacity limits. The iconic Miami venue Space has shared its plans to reopen after months of pivoting over to live streams that were played to an empty terrace. It was quite sad, but of course exciting that they could keep things going. Space will be the first large-scale venue in Miami to reopen since the shutdown, so all eyes are pretty much on Club Space to see how they're going to handle it. Of course, keeping an eye on all of the health and safety restrictions and hopefully seeing some success. The venue will open at 25% capacity and enforce social distancing. There will be no dance floor because of this. Instead, Space will feel more like a day club or a restaurant in which tables are set up throughout the terrace and loft spaces for those who are familiar with Club Space. Servers will circulate rather than having an open bar situation where customers are able to go up and make their orders. Club Space has released its new rules on social media. Notably, masks must be worn while entering and mobilizing through the venue. However, they can be removed in the patrons' reserved zones. Additionally, the club has asked people to limit physical contact, including high fives, and encourages people to greet each other via waves and smiles. Of course, as I mentioned, there will be no bar service either. Orders will be brought to reserved zones by servers. So I believe Macioplex is scheduled for the opening weekend. So all eyes will be on Club Space to see how that goes for the next few weeks. Over on the other side of the world, England. It has been crazy over there regarding the nightlife industry and, of course, COVID-19 fallout. England's bar and pubs could face a £1,000 fine for loud music and allowing dancing under new COVID-19 restrictions, which is kind of a crazy headline just on its own. But here's all the context around it. So, establishments now face the potential of a £1,000 fine if they exceed the 85 decibel limit on music played in pubs, bars, restaurants, or cafes. Also, for allowing dancing. Venue managers must take all reasonable measures to stop people from dancing and singing in groups of more than 6, which is the most dystopian sentence ever. I think what was written in an article is that the decibel limit likely comes from the fact that higher volumes of music leads to people speaking louder and potentially projecting more virus aerosols. And these restrictions are yet again another knock against the suffering hospitality and nightlife industries. The news follows, the UK government had actually already imposed a 10 p.m. curfew on bars and pubs and restaurants as COVID-19 cases rose. This new development was followed up by a few dismal perspectives, the first being from Government Minister Gillian Keegan, who gave an interview on Sky News stating that it's hard to see how nightclubs will open until we have some kind of long-term way to deal with coronavirus. That is for sure true. She went on to seemingly suggest that workers in industries that aren't able to function during the pandemic should simply find a new job, which is really just not the best advice. But she said, today we are introducing a new focus on adults, which is just being able to offer the people the chance to reskill, upskill, take different routes in life because they may need to. Ugh. On the other hand, Health Minister Helen Whately also interviewed on Sky News on live television and shared that it doesn't make sense to continue supporting jobs where there simply isn't work at the moment in regards to the nightlife industry. Of course, as you can imagine, these two quotes were not well received by nightlife individuals, industry people, and artists themselves who are operating in the UK. Fat Tony, who is an original Acid House DJ, went on to Sky News to actually retaliate. He explained that his career is not dispensable. It's not something you can throw away. Speaking behalf on DJs, I think as a whole, and artists as a whole, I've worked a lifetime to get to the point in my career where I am. DJs trained to do what we do. It's not something we do overnight. It's an art. In addition, Calvin Harris, of course, quite a famous name, not only in the UK, but worldwide, took to his Instagram to call out the government as well. He shared a photo and the caption said, "As usual, the UK government is treating the music industry like shit. contributing $5 billion to the economy, generating massive tax revenues for NHS and other public services. Besides that, the culture is extremely important. You've lost sight of what life is about. You'd rather live in a world of supermarkets and pharmaceutical drugs. Ooh, quite a savage comment there. So, of course, artists and other figures of the UK nightlife scene are encouraging people to take action and sign the Let Us Dance petition, which demands the government to extend funding to support nightclubs, dance events, and festivals. So you can go ahead and search Let Us Dance petition if you want to sign that and get involved. And that is the news for this week here on the Newsfloor. We have arrived at the Hub, which is the part of the Newsfloor where we get to go over some of the best new tracks and top #1 tunes of the week right here on the Newsfloor. We're going to get started with the Beatport #1, which if you listened last week might sound a little familiar, but it's a really good track, so we're going to just forgive that. The Beatport #1 is still Best of Me by Artbat featuring Sailor and I. Artur and Batish are of course Artbat, and they are among the most successful Ukrainian electronic music talents. I was just watching their Circle stream this weekend, which has over 11 million views. Very casual. They've teamed up with Swedish singer and producer Sailor and I for Best of Me, a powerful track featuring uplifting melodies and the sultry vocals of the Swedish talent. It is out now on Metaphysical. Next is Pete Tong's essential new tune. This week he chose Tunnel Vision's Gold Teeth, which is out on Moscow Man's Disco Halal label. It's kind of the summer tune for the summer of 2020 that never was. It is funky, super feel-good house music with that sort of rousing, high-energy vibe, and it marks the very first single from Tunnel Vision's upcoming EP of the same name, Gold Teeth, that is coming from the Amsterdam-based duo out on Disco Halal later this year. This week for the Newsfloor pick of the week, we have Machine Drum's upcoming album, which is called A View of You. LA-based producer Travis Stewart is Machine Drum, and he is preparing to release his 9th studio album, which is out actually this Friday, October 9th, out on Ninja Tune. The album is inspired by the feeling of having an out-of-body experience in a moment. It is a moment that feels like time has stopped. And as we all probably know, it can feel very unfamiliar and scary, but also beautiful and life-changing at the same time once you surrender to the moment. The latest single is called Spin Blocks, and it's in collaboration with Atlanta rapper Father. And it's yet another example of the diverse and masterful range of Machine Drum, who bounces between club tracks to easy listening and R&B tinged tunes all across A View of You. So here's the play of Spin Blocks, and look out for the album coming soon. Last but certainly not least, this week, the Newsfloor track of the week is called Got That Hope, which is an iconic collaboration between artist and label head Brandon Lucas and Black activist Dr. Cornel West. If you tuned in to Rave the Vote earlier this weekend, this won't be a surprise to you. If you caught Brandon Lucas's set, it was incredible. It featured dancers, dance moves, incredible vocals, and as you can imagine, Got That Hope is no less. The track marks an exciting new beginning of Purple Label Sound, which is a new label helmed by Brandon Lucas himself. Got That Hope features lyrics from a 19th century hymn, which Dr. West intones throughout the song. Lucas and Dr. West actually recorded the track this summer, and it speaks to their belief in and the need for change in America, which I'm sure you and I can all fully understand and support. A quote from Brandon Lucas says that 2020 has been a whirlwind of uncertainty for all of us, and I believe that the hope will be the key to keep some sense of motivation, sustainability, and light for our collective conscious. And we actually got an exclusive quote right from Brandon Lucas, so check that out now.
My name is Brandon Lucas, and I have a brand new record that you have to check out. It's called Got That Hope, featuring Cornel West. That's right, the esteemed philosopher, professor, activist, love warrior that he is, Dr. Cornel West, has blessed us on this record. And this is my first record in the electronic music space. I come from the world of R&B and hip hop. I've been in the industry for a very long time, and I'm just stoked to be pushing forward a different voice in this dance music community, as well as elevating other voices of color and underrepresented communities through a label that we're launching called Purple Label Sound. So stay tuned for more from Purple Label Sound. Stay tuned for more from me, Brandon Lucas, and Dr. Cornel West. And be sure to check out Got That Hope featuring Cornel West. Thank you.
You got that hope in you, but you don't talk about the hope. You enact the hope, and it's in your music. That is the blues. It's the narrative of a catastrophe, lyrically expressed, but doesn't allow the catastrophe to have the last word.
Reached the Circuit, which is our segment where we bring in people from in and around the world of rave doing things that you should know about. I'm really excited to welcome our guest Stacey Lee, who I had the pleasure of talking with earlier this week. She is the director of a new documentary called Underplayed, which is a film that explores social and music industry issues, mainly focused on the topic of women and equality and their experiences in the electronic music world. In 2019, only 5 of the top 100 DJs were women. Underplayed portraits the current status of gender, ethnic, and sexual equality issues through the experiences of the female pioneers. Some of the names included in the documentary include Alice in Wonderland, Toki Monster, Tyga Paw, some really cool and diverse talents on board, and you might even see a cameo of yours truly giving a quote or two if you check it out. So let's get straight into it, and let's hear from Stacey Lee.
We've been missing a voice, and we don't even know what that is.
Wait, is that true? You were in like a studio with these other producers and like they really didn't listen to your ideas because you're female, and they're like, yes, that is what it's really like.
It can't be because I'm a woman, that's why you're not giving me these opportunities. But then it always proved to be that situation.
Why haven't women done it? Well, they have done it all along, but they've been invisible.
I never had seen a female DJ at the clubs, ever.
Nada. Hardly any women.
Maybe I should have posted more pictures of me in the studio so people know I am actually here doing all the work.
I don't like to talk about it a lot, but there is definitely sexism in the music industry.
It's almost like this hush-hush taboo subject. So many people doubted me.
Oh, Toki Monster, she didn't even make that. Her boyfriend made it.
Oh, you guys just boost her up because she's a girl.
It's not just shit mix. It's you should kill yourself. And this is the stuff we get.
But I'm a tough girl. And it really just put fuel into the fire.
we're tapping into something that wasn't possible a decade or two ago.
Let's just like take a second to think about how messed up it is that I'm actually headlining this venue. Damn, like that's really insane.
The newer generation is so free of a lot of the shackles that we felt. And that makes me feel like we did make ground.
I would rather be someone's 20th favorite producer than their number one favorite female producer. I deserve to be in the same category as everyone else.
I'm glad that I didn't listen. I'm glad I didn't give up.
Hi, Stacey. How are you?
I'm good, Val. Nice to see you again.
It is really nice to see you again. For those who don't know and haven't actually gotten a chance to watch Underplayed yet, I guess I should let people know that I am actually in it. Thankfully, you invited me to be a part of it, which was such an honor. So I'm glad to be
I know, absolutely.
chatting with you again.
Yeah, I know. Now the tables have turned.
Exactly. Now I get to interview
I'm
you.
in the hot
Exactly. I know, I love it. Well, let's get right into it because I know that, obviously this has been a big year for you, not only with the documentary, but you've also got a baby on the way. So your exciting 2020 is, rolling ahead. But let's talk about the project at hand, which of course is Underplayed, this amazing documentary that recently was released that tackles, this sort of evergreen conversation around the subject of equality, of women, and in this world of electronic music and DJs. I was, so interested by this topic coming to light when you came to me, and of course now that it's come out. For better or for worse, this is a subject that has been around in the music industry for several years now, which, on the good side, it's that people are talking about it and trying to take actions to fix things and make things right. But at the same time, every year we're still dealing with new issues and new subjects that come to light. So I'm curious to know from your perspective, why did you feel like now was the time to tackle this conversation with something like a documentary like Underplayed?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And first of all, as a female filmmaker, I have a lot of parallels with the electronic music industry, and particularly being a female filmmaker. The challenges that come with, obviously being categorized or defined, not seen as just one of many in the broader kind of category of things. I had actually made a documentary, a short film 2 years prior in 2016 on the electronic music scene, and started to notice and see a lot of the gender inequality issues and all the rest of it. So when I reapproached it, it was 2018 going to 2019, I noticed, we just had Me Too, we'd had Time's Up, we'd had all these really beautiful kind of movements that had happened in society and just greater awareness. But when I looked at the statistics and the way things were going, there wasn't a lot of change. And in certain instances, some things had actually got a little bit worse. So I realized that there was a potential story here, but the part of it that was, as you alluded to just then, is that there's issue fatigue. Women have been asked about this, over and over again. I'm sick of it. I didn't want to have to be the one to ask the question. I wanted to try and figure out a way to address it and move the issue forward in some kind of way that wasn't just talking about it, but actually, for me, it was about visualizing the incredible women who are working in this space and undeniably how talented they are and how, their journey and their trajectories are hard. So there's like this sense of empathy with someone who is coming up, but most importantly, that each of them have got where they are on their own terms. And I think Susan Ciani says it at the end of the film, they're not trying to follow, footsteps that men have created. Every single one of these women, from Alison to Tiger Paw to Nightwave to Louisa, all have their own voice. And that's really beautiful to me. And that was a really important kind of differentiator. I wanted to put a line in the sand so that that argument of like, why aren't there more female producers? It's like, well, yes, they are here, and look what they're doing and look how they're doing it. And to prove by example rather than, just talking about the issues over and over again, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. And I actually so appreciate that perspective, because I do remember even, back in my journalist days, I would have conversations with leading women who were doing amazing work. And they were like, I'm just so tired of always answering, how is it being a female DJ? They're just like, I only know this life because this is my life. And I'm just going to keep doing it as best as I can. And I think that's totally the resounding message, was that they just wanted to be celebrated for their art and their work. And it sounds like that's exactly what you achieved. I'm curious to know, you talked to so many wonderful people and artists, like you mentioned. Was there anything that you found surprising or, fascinating throughout the journey of creating Underplayed?
I mean, what was so the themes that kept coming up over and over again, no matter how diverse the artists were, or their musical styles or their backgrounds, what was surprising is that there was always a commonality of experience and sometimes of insecurity, and then but also too of this female entrepreneurship, which I just absolutely adored. Rez, teaching herself in her basement, producing, engineering, mastering, like she does everything herself. And then of course Alison, exactly the same boat, and Tiger Paw coming up as well. Every single one of these artists had some kind of challenge, and used that as almost like the fuel to push beyond and to be that example for the next generation. And that for me was really inspiring. It sucks that it has to happen that way sometimes, but I think there is so much power in different perspectives, showing all the different sorts of ways you can navigate the music industry. It doesn't have to just be through the traditional paths. And I hope also too, post-COVID and post this year and all these kind of systems that are breaking apart, I do hope that this entrepreneurship and this fresh way of doing things is actually part of the change to help improve this, not just obviously for gender inequality, but racial inequality, sexual inequality, all of the different sorts of, inequality that need to be achieved to make the music as rich and diverse as its kind of origins.
Yeah, I also, I totally hear that as well, because that's something that I actually said a lot, again, back in my journalism days. I would notice that you would find different stories or learn different things about people who come from different walks of life. And I think that's totally true with women. And like you mentioned, any sort of minority or different identity that isn't the majority right now. Those are the people that have to overcome and really try extra hard and put their best foot forward more so than other people, and come up with their own path. So I think that's when you really start to see some incredible stories appear. Yeah. And then so I think one part of the conversation around, equality in music is always like, what can we do now? It's like, we know this is an issue. We know that we should be doing and taking actions to solve it. Is there anything that you would recommend, after creating something like this and talking to so many people, is there anything you would recommend specifically to people in the music industry, and then also to people who are fans of the music to do today, tomorrow? What would you tell them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, first and foremost, like any issue or movement of this time, it's not of the people who are oppressed or in the minority to solve it. Gender inequality is something that needs both male and females to be fighting for it, just as the Black Lives Matter movement does, just as all the important movements that are happening right now. It's everybody's collective consciousness to be vigilant, to stay on top of it. And in terms of the industry, it's all sides of the industry. It's the fans themselves obviously going and supporting artists that, financially, whether it's Bandcamp. There's been a lot of incredible initiatives this year with Bandcamp. And I think that that's really important, is that just trying to support via models that aren't necessarily the traditional models, because I think that puts money directly in the hands of artists. Obviously promoters being highly aware that, of course you need your main stage big name acts, but you also need that pipeline of artists kind of coming up. And unless somebody gets that chance, they're never going to be given that chance. You know what I mean? So I think it's really, really important that everybody, it's a shame it doesn't happen organically. It's almost like there's a vigilance, and you don't want it to be like token or forced in any sort of way. But I do believe, and you would find this too with all the artists you speak to and work with, is that the diversity is there. And it's a case of trying to program whatever event it is with that in mind. It's the artists themselves. So, the mainstream artists too, like when they're thinking about who's going to tour with them, who's going to be their support acts, let's think about that with diversity in mind as well. Let's program holistically so that the audience, and the people on stage are reflective of each other, because that's the world we kind of live in. And I think, overall for me, the biggest thing is just that responsibility is no pointing fingers. Nobody is to blame for this. And I certainly don't believe that there's any ill will or purposeful, manipulation. But I do believe that heightened awareness and everything that we've gone through this year, and particularly, should hopefully be reflected and demonstrated in the years going forward. And that's my dream with this. I think you and I talked about this in the interview, that the origins of dance music are so diverse and so rich and so beautiful. Inclusivity and love, and this beautiful kind of underground movement. And how awesome would that be if that came back and that was the norm? And imagine how many more sounds and styles of music we would hear if that was the case. So that's really something that's always creatively kind of is important to me, in my field, in your field, and in any field, but particularly as it pertains to this issue.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that very much. It's, the talent is out there. The hunger is out there. There's so many artists that are just eager and ready to take their place. And I think the responsibility kind of lies on all of us to allow that to happen and kind of nourish them to be there. So I know that Underplayed premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival a couple weeks ago now. But for those watching who are now, learning about Underplayed and are like, I want to watch this, where can I find it? Tell me where. Tell us where we can watch it.
Well, yeah, so it premiered at Toronto. So it was supposed to premiere at Tribeca, and then COVID happened, and then it premiered at Toronto 2 weeks ago in a drive-in movie theater. So Canadians are, they got the special treatment. Yeah. Not even any of the film crew could go. The next aim for it is to travel and potentially do some other festivals internationally. So that we can, reach the audience there. And then obviously the ideal goal is to get online distribution from there. So we'll be looking to do that in the next, couple of months or so. But yeah, until then, there is a website, underplayedthefilm.com, I believe. And, a bunch of other bits of content that are out there if you search Underplayed, the documentary. And most importantly, just check out the artists who are in there, it was such a beautiful experience working with each and every single one of them. Most of them hadn't met each other before or heard of each other, but through watching the film, that was actually the saddest part about not having a premiere, is I really wish everyone had got to sit and meet each other and be side by side, because it's that community of women who are doing things, and how common and how many overlaps there are. Doesn't matter if the music's different, there is just so much kind of similarities between a lot of them, and that's what I hope one day will happen. But yeah, the film will be coming out soon, so watch the space.
Perfect. So if you're curious to find more about Underplayed, just Google, go to the website, you can find all the info, and hopefully everyone will be able to see it soon. But for now, thank you so much, Stacey, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of 2020. You've already done a great job so far, so take it easy for the rest of the year.
Thanks, Val. Nice to speak again.
Talk to you soon. All right, welcome to the segment where we talk to you about all things happening in the world of streams, not including this one. These are more about DJ streams that you should have not missed previously. We're going to recap some of the best that you may have missed out on, and then, of course, highlight a couple that you can still mark on your calendar that are coming up. And this is all thanks to our friends over at Stream Informer. You can find them on Instagram and Facebook at Stream Informer. Let's go ahead and start with the recap. Over the weekend, Dave P's Philadelphia-based party celebrated its 20th birthday, and of course the celebration went virtual. Standout sets from that included Hieroglyphic Being, DJ Tennis, Otique, and Josh Wink. and that was all set to a unique and psychedelic visual overlay, which is always super fun. Those sets and more can be found on Beatport's YouTube page if you want to go revisit. And then upcoming this week, some exciting stuff. First up is on Thursday, October 8th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, where a group of New York's rising stars are coming together, DJ Swisha, Ace Mo, Kush Jones, to name a few, to take the Lot Radio booth for a 2-hour back-to-back. Always super fun. They have a super raw and energetic sound and are essentials when we see them coming up on the streaming schedules. And then following up after that, on Friday, October 9th, Berlin-based streaming platform HOR is hosting a number of electronic favorites. Among them is Actress. Actress has not yet done a stream throughout pandemic months, throughout this whole year, basically. So it's going to be a big one for fans of Actress and those who might be curious about his super unique sound. You can tune in at 12 p.m. Eastern Time on HOR's YouTube. And remember, for more stream highlights and daily stream schedules, you can find our friend Stream Informer on Instagram, on Facebook, and then sign up for their weekly newsletter. I always say this, but last and certainly not least, we have arrived at the catch-up, which is where I bring in some of our favorite artists from in and around the world of raving and talk to them a little bit about what's going on, new releases, life updates, whatever it is. This week I was super excited to talk to Cassian, who is one of my favorites, a pal of mine, but also an incredible producer, one of Australia's finest talents. He released his debut album Laps earlier this year and has been keeping things going. He just released actually another remix of Bronson as well. You're gonna get a play of that and then also hear about what he's been up to over the past few months right now. Hi, Cassian. How are you?
I'm good, Val. How are you?
I'm great. I actually wanted to start by showing you what I prepared. Ready?
Hey, thank you.
I was gonna wear it, but then I was like, no, I gotta relax a little. I'm excited to talk to you because I was actually thinking about this before we got online, and I was like, I think the last time I talked to you, you were preparing to release your album, which is so long ago now. It feels like literally centuries ago. But you were talking about, finalizing everything for your debut album, Laps, which came out this summer. And I guess I want to start there. How do you feel? It's been a crazy year. I think probably even a crazier year to release an album. But how do you feel like having it out in the world and being able to share that with everyone finally?
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of like conflicting feelings around it, honestly, because it is when it was all happening and it was coming out, it felt great because I was like doing streams and I was connecting with people, and then now that I've just been like in this room alone for like another 6 months or whatever, I'm like, what's going on? Does anyone like it's a bit it's not, you don't get the same feedback as, we had like a whole year of touring plan, and it was like going out and doing shows and just like actually getting like immediate kind of feedback from people. It's very different than kind of being stuck in the studio.
I know, I'm eager to see you out on tour, but I'm sure that once things open up again, everyone's just going to be ready and hungry for it. But I feel like you've done a good job of keeping things pretty exciting, even though we have been stuck at home. I saw recently there's a big remix package that is coming out, has come out. Talk to me a little bit about that and how you kind of put it together.
Yeah, I really just got, it's not like groundbreaking to like do remixes of an album, but I guess my approach with it and what we really wanted to do was just remixes just purely from my friends and from like my peers and people who like whose music I play in my sets and people who play my music in, their sets. And just one remix, not of every song on the album, but just of the songs we wanted remixes, just one. Like we didn't want to do like a pack. I just felt like it was actually Yoda who did the remix of Imagination, where we were kind of talking about, releasing remixes, and he was kind of, I don't know, it was just like when there's a pack, even if every remix is great, they're all going to get somewhat diluted. So it's like, instead of getting like a bunch of my friends to remix the same song and not have the like attention like kind of focused on each one individually, it was like, why don't I just chill out a little bit, just get a few and just one remix of per track. So yeah, we had Yodo remix Imagination, which was like the lead single off the album. Lastlings, who are also on Rose Avenue, my label, they remixed together. And then Durante remixed Open Up, which just came out a few weeks ago as well.
That's such a good crew. I feel like, I mean, I obviously know you keep a good crew of people around you, and they just all happen to be super talented, awesome producers as well. So that works out nicely.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. Like since I started working in music, I was just like, I just wouldn't even be thinking about it, and then I'd just be like, how are like all my actual favorite artists like my friends too? I'm like, am I just like seeking out friendships with people I'm a fan of, or does it just happen organically? I don't know how it happens. Like if I'm doing it like subconsciously or what, but I'm like, yeah, all my like friends and like closest friends like actually are like actually my favorite artists too, which is like kind of weird.
It's a good combo. It makes you feel nice knowing that like people, you're a fan of their work, but they're also really good people too. I feel that way about you
Yeah,
guys.
maybe
Like,
I need. Yeah, maybe it's like to be like the super fan, I need to know that they're actually like cool people too. So I'm like, let me investigate and be friends, and then that'll take my fandom to the next level.
You're like, then I can fully invest. It's like the opposite
Yeah.
of don't meet your heroes. It's like meet your heroes, make sure that they should be your heroes.
Validate. Yeah, make sure. It's like, okay, hero status check. All right, cool.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's like an interesting conversation because I mean, you guys are all super talented and, you know, stuck inside making remixes and producing things. How have you felt, you know, over quarantine creatively? Like, has it been hard for you? Has it been really productive for you?
It's a bit of both. Like I always find in general, for me, like the creativity aspect and just like the aspect of being inspired, like it's always kind of cyclical. Like some weeks I'll be like, oh my God, I'm just bursting with ideas. And other weeks I'll be like, nah, I'm not really feeling it this week. But like in the past, that was usually kind of moderated by touring. So it's like when I'm out of the studio, I'm just like building ideas and I'm like getting so inspired to come back in. Then I would go back in and I'm like, great. But now with just constant studio time, it's been a bit different. But I also just moved into this studio at the start of quarantine. So it's like, and I was madly trying to finish my album and I wasn't really like, you know, I got a piano in here. I wasn't really playing piano that much. I got like so much room to just like, some days you just walk in here and there's just like guitars all over the floor. I'll just like sit on the floor and play guitar. Like, you know, you can just,
Playground.
yeah, it's a playground. And I'm just like diving into that has like helped me be super creative, I think, in this period. Like, yeah, there's a bunch of music. Well, there's a remix of Bronson that I did at the start of lockdown, like right when I first came in here. And that came out last week. There's going to be a collab EP with one of my friends that we've been like hinting at online. It's not going to be out for maybe a month, maybe 6 weeks, something like that, but that's coming. Yeah, there's a bunch of music and I've been like doing my kind of behind the scenes like mixer and producer thing as well in here on like a bunch of really exciting records that are all kind of coming out. So yeah. Been staying busy.
Yeah, I was gonna say you've been staying really busy. So
there's nothing else to do, honestly.
Right, you might as well be busy in there. Is there any advice you would give to people who, you know, I've heard a lot of producers who are talking about, you know, feeling the struggle of they miss that, you know, on the tour feeling of getting inspired and then coming back in. Like, what advice would you give if you could to someone who hasn't been as productive, hasn't been as on it as you and is trying to get there?
I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like I've been super productive. I've done a lot. I don't know. It's weird. I've done a lot of stuff, but I don't feel. I mean, if I'd like done another album by now, I'd be like, yes, I'm killing it. But like, I don't know.
Overachiever.
Yeah, maybe. I just think like for me, like I just like love music so much and so many different kinds of music. So it's like there's always something to be inspired by. Like I don't know. Like the other day when that James Blake cover of Godspeed came out, and I just like heard it. I was like, I'm just gonna play piano today. So I just like sat at the piano and just played piano. It's like there's always something fun and exciting. And then like just that playing piano, I was like, gave me an idea for this song that I've been working on. So I don't know. There's always I think that's something that artists have been showing as well, is like, you know, Yotto just released an ambient EP, T did an ambient EP, Motez did an ambient EP. Like there's always something. I'm like, if you're a professional musician and you're like you're not able to always find that something, it's like, I don't know, maybe you should try to fall a bit more in love with music itself, because there's like so much, and that's the problem, is there's never enough time but now it's like there's all the time in the world. So it's like, just explore that other stuff. Like, yeah, if you don't have the, inspiration for like the peak time banger that you want to make, maybe just like make something different and like see what happens,
Yeah, I feel like that's a thread that I've heard consistently, is being open to embracing new things, even if it feels different than what you might have previously made before. Like you said, people are listening to chiller music right now, so maybe producers are actually feeling like they want to create something more relaxing or more slow paced. So that's good advice. Just be open to whatever tickles your fancy today, right?
Yeah, there's always something else. Like even like with normally having the kind of dynamic of going on tour and coming back in the studio, it's like I've always had the added thing of like producing music for other artists or mixing music for other artists and then coming back to my project. So like maybe I'm a little bit spoiled because I'm never really just truly left alone. It's not like I'm just in here working on like my project and that's it. That's all I have to worry about. Maybe I would go crazy and maybe I would like dry up from inspiration. But I do think like, there's so much amazing music out there. Even if for like, you're a dance music producer and it's like you're a bit dried up with ideas, just like do something else and like it doesn't have to be under your name or whatever, just like make music. And I don't know, it doesn't always have to be for like it doesn't always have to be like for the project, like what are we doing next, like let's go, like you can just kind of be a musical inspired person. And I don't know, from there it's always like flowing with inspiration whenever I do that anyway.
Yeah, just have some fun with it, right? See what comes.
Yeah, it's meant to be fun. Like,
it's a good reminder. Well, thanks for joining us. The remix is awesome, and we will keep an eye out for this new project that's coming out soon, hopefully. So,
yeah,
just Cassian, stay safe
awesome.
And healthy out there.
Thanks for having me, Val.
And that's it for another episode of the Newsfloor. Thank you for joining us. We are going to be here every single Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific time. If you haven't already, follow Lost Resort TV, subscribe if you can. Thank you for being in the chat, sharing your thoughts. That has been super awesome, and I look forward to hearing more about what you guys think about news, tracks, and interviews that we are about to bring and do here on the Newsfloor. There's a lot of cool programming that happens on this channel if you haven't subscribed yet. We have Lost Resort with Toki Monster happening tomorrow with Nina Diaz and Ulysses. And then next week on Tuesday, Schmoozin' with Soul Clap has Scream joining them, which is going to be the coolest conversation. So definitely tune in for that. That happens on Tuesdays, right before the show every single week. So thank you again for joining us. And if you want to follow us when we're not live, we are at the Newsfloor on Twitter, on Instagram. I'm Valerie Lee, your host, and it has been a pleasure, and we will see you next week.